my porridge. Don't make me turn this fine rental car around now.
Subway sparkling water.
Let's get inside the Blender 3.0 using a Quest 2. And don't worry, for those of you using SteamVR, I'll let you know how to get in as well. For those of you starting with the Quest 2, make sure you have yourself a temporary link cable. It's so much smoother than trying to do this through airline. Now, let's go and talk about the software you're going to need. Now, what you'll need to get this to work is obviously Blender 3.0 and the Oculus app. You can get that over at oculus.com/setup. And click the big blue button here. Get it downloaded and installed, and then double click it and let's get this started. Inside of here, the first thing you're going to need to do is pair your device. Now before we pair our device, let's turn on our Oculus and go inside. Inside of our Oculus, we've got to make sure we do one thing in one second. Right here, we want to be sure that our experimental air link is switched off. If this is on, you will not be able to do normal Oculus link. With this off, now let's head back over to the devices. Here, click add headset, then select the headset you're going to be adding, and then we're going to link via cable. Click continue, and then connect the link to your headset. Once connected, you're going to get this lovely allow access which will pop up and show you click bookmark. Once you push allow, make sure you enable it. As you can see, it then prompts you to go back to your computer screen. On here, we just need to click continue, and that's the setup and pairing done. Now there's one setting that we need to quickly change here. Is go over to settings, go to general, and we want to turn on unknown sources on. Click allow there, and then make sure that OpenXR runtime is set Oculus as active. With those two things done, now you're ready to start up Blender. Very quickly, for those of you using SteamVR, make sure you have that launched. And inside of our settings, make sure that you have advanced settings to show. Go to developer and set this right here to set SteamVR as OpenXR runtime. And now restart SteamVR. Inside of Blender, it's super simple. All we're going to do is go to Edit and Preferences, go to Add-ons, and type in here VR. You'll find the VR Screen Inspector. Turn this on, then press N for your right-hand side menu. Go over to VR and click Start VR Session. Now, be aware, we still have this on in the background, and the link is currently connected. This is how it's going to work due to the OpenXR runtime currently set it active on the Oculus. So let's turn this on and jump over to our Quest 2. So here we are inside of Blender VR. It's relatively simple to move around. Use your single grip to move around the world. Use double grip to scale the world. Use your right hand thumb to go up and down, as well as rotate left and right. Use your left hand thumb to go forward, backward, left and right. If you want to drop back down to the grid, press A or X, and both of those will get you back to the grid itself. Now there's a couple of extra things that I want to show you before you go back into normal Blender. So the first thing I want to point out is the clip start. I like to change these values to work with my unit scale. I usually have them set around about like that. As you can see down here, I have my little 3D view. Now when I first jumped into VR, you might have noticed that I was inside of my cube. That is because I did not have a camera in the scene. Now I'm going to bring in the camera and take a look how quickly snap into that camera. That's because it automatically turns my landmark as my scene camera. Landmarks are a quick way of jumping around the scene. Now, with this camera here, I can actually just move the camera around and remove my actual sort of VR view. You can also rotate this camera and it will rotate the VR view. There's many other powerful things you can do with it, but I found that using a camera this way isn't the best. The best way to set up a camera is, instead of it being the scene camera, turn it into a custom object and set the camera in that way. This way, if you're doing precision modeling and you're in a unit scale of 0.001, you can actually change the unit scale of the camera to reflect real-world dimensions like this. Because now, that cube is only 2 millimeters, and that should be tiny, and the crease here should be set to 0.1, and also then probably put this up a good few bits so that you're able to see this teeny tiny cube right up there. Now, that's only a 2 millimeter crease due to the change of the unit scale. I'll change this back to 100, and I'll also change the camera size to reflect that unit scale sizing as well, and I'll snap it back to the landmark as well. And then you'll have the cube back to the normal real-world size, which is 1-to-1 scaling. So this is how you can have 2 different scaling methods, one being precision and the other one being normal. Now I'm tired of having this window here, so I want to show you one of the coolest things about this, which is down here in the viewport feedback, which is mirror the VRC. Let's click this off. When I click mirror the VRC, you've got it. This now turns into a mirror of my VRC. So I'm just going to move my controller about a little bit here just so that we can get a little better view of that. So this here is my VR view. Now what I like to do at this point is usually move myself in another window instead of have my normal render. I'll set that to my second monitor. I can do this just by dragging out the screen, but I do find that sometimes things don't quite work out here. I don't know why. It's got to do with whatever's going on, but like when it's like I'm trying to scroll, it doesn't work. But when I actually do this the normal way of bringing in another window, in this other window, I'm able to zoom in and do any changes that I'm wanting to do to the scene in that way. Now, something that's really, really powerful about doing this is the ability to actually do real-world rendering. But to do that, let's bring in something a little bit more interesting than just view. To showcase this next awesome feature, I've got this lovely little model here by Pixel over at Sketchfab. The link to this lovely little medieval scene will be linked down in the description. Now with it all set up, I have currently my easy rendering on. And what I've done beforehand is I've brought in a cube my size so that I know that everything here is real world size. Now I'm going to bring in a camera. And I'm going to set this camera as a custom object. With that camera now set up as a custom object, I'm also going to set all of the rotation down to 0. And now I will turn on my VR session. Now when I turn on my VR session with my headset on, looking in the right direction, I'm going to bring in another window. So in this new window here, I'm going to use this as my watch window. So I'm going to select the camera on the right hand side. I'm going to press 0 to look through the camera right here. Then I'm going to press Shift back or tilde, depends on your keyboard, it's under the escape. So Shift, that button there, and now we'll do a walk. As you can see, I can now look around and walk in my scene. Now I will actually see that camera that you're seeing there. So what I'm going to do is I'll right click to cancel that and then snap me back. I'm going to turn off this so you can see more along the lines of what I'm seeing on my screen here. And now we'll go back here, press Shift, back tick, I'm back into walk cycle. I'll tilt my mouse up like this, and now you can see as I move my mouse side to side, it moves my view, and then I can use WASD to move forward. I can press space as well to teleport a little bit. And what I want to show you is right here inside of this lovely little castle, I can just go up to the stairs and start walking up. Yes, it's a little bit jumpy, but this is now WASD movement in virtual reality inside of a rendered scene. I hope you understand how incredible that is. I'm going to go over here as well, just to say hello to this farmer and the cows over here, and you can really tell that you can take this to be anything. It doesn't have to be a low-poly scene. You can make this an incredible architectural scene, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do that. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're wanting to walk on a surface, make sure navigation you have gravity turned on. Additionally to this, if you really want, you can turn on the VR camera, controller, and landmarks to see where everything is in the VR world space. So I will put my headset back on, I will bring my controllers up, and you can now see where I am in the VR space itself. This is incredibly powerful, and I just cannot believe how easy it's been to set this up. And that there is just the start of it. I have another video where I'm going to show you how to take this to the next level and actually bring a virtual reality window from your computer into the Blender VR workspace. This way you're able to actually work inside of Blender, inside of the Blender VR workspace, so when you're modeling away, you can see it in 3D in the VR, real time and render. A huge thank you to my team. You guys are absolutely awesome, and a special thank you to my VIP maker, Jedimetatron. If you're enjoying what I'm making here and you think I'm worthy of your support, I would love to see you there too. And don't forget that we have a Discord that is linked down in the description. Thank you for watching, keep making, and the quest continues.
Colton's personality is very loving, very supportive. He's one of the most caring children I've ever met.
When he started the chemo, it just made him super, super sick. But even him feeling bad, he sees some of the babies. He felt worse for them. He tells me one day, he says, you know, I wish I could take all the cancer from all of them so they don't have to deal with it.
When I grow up, I want to be a nurse for St. Jude or just a doctor. Because they help me. I want to return the favor and help other kids.
I work for the fire department, and I'm an EMT as well. When people call us, you know, we're there to fix a problem. And when there's a problem that I can't fix, all of us do. There's nothing in the world that can prepare your mind for hearing your child has cancer.
I had pain in my side, and then it got worse and worse. Then we went to the hospital. My mom was trying not to make me be worried, and she said, oh, you just have a scratch on your stomach, it's gonna be okay. And then when St. Jude told me it's a tumor, and then I was kind of scared, but not really.
It had spread to his lungs, and there was multiple decent-sized tumors and then a lot of very small tumors. St. Jude is a place to be from what I understand. So I feel like we came to like the epicenter of where they're doing all the groundbreaking research. So within 2 weeks, they took him with his kidney along with the tumor.
They took it and researched on it so they could help, like, find cures to help kids that have that. Some days you feel really bad, and some days you feel really good.
He's handled everything like a champ. No matter how bad he's felt, never complains. But he was more worried about us than himself, you know. It's just who he is. Being here restores my faith in humanity. We came here with the fear that our son may not live with us.
But to hear that he had clear scan was the best news we could possibly get.
There's no tumor in sight. Probably one of the happiest days of my life.
My doctor said, you never cancer, and we were like, oh my gosh. I can go back to having fun. I can be a kid again.
America's most reliable network is going ultra, with Verizon 5G ultra wideband now in many more cities. Hey, it's Mindy! Downloading a movie up to 10 times faster than before. Whoa, is that done?
Yep.
Verizon is going ultra, so you can too. imports much faster. The image editor can handle any resolution you throw at it virtually. What else? Video sequence editor, asset browser, geometry. Now, of course, like every week, and then the USD improvements, you name it. It's gonna be fun. I hope you have a warm tea or something. If you're in the summer, if you're in the southern hemisphere, yeah, in winter. No, the other way around. Here, sorry. I still jet lag. You know what? I have a bunch of updates that are related to Blender. One of them is Blender today. Some of them are purchased by the Blender Animation Studio, also known as Blender Studio. Look how amazing the resource is. Why? Because you know that the Blender Studio releases the films as open content, and every tool that is used by the Blender Studio to make a sprite or spring and that you name it is open source. Well, this is the latest addition to the family. It's called Watchtower. Watchtower is here to fill the need of like the entire project, in this case a short film, but it could also work with bigger projects all at once. So it's made by Francesco City in Sombrera, and Francesco being the producer of the Fried, Spring, Caminandes, many other projects. So as a producer, he always wanted to have a global view of the project. So this here is the entire film, Sprite Fried. You can see everything. Well, there is now this tool that they made that it's allows you to just simply browse and navigate in the browser, drag and position and filter the entire film, the tasks associated with them, like who is doing what in case of the user team, the assets that are, like if you want to see where is the apple in, or like the bad mushroom in Sprite Frights, well, this tool allows you to see that, to see which of those shots or what assets are in that specific shot. It's insane. The statuses, all the tasks, rendering, lighting, animation, it's just insane. So you should check it out, especially if you work in a studio environment. You should have a look. It just got released a few hours ago, so I think GitLab was down, like the site where it's hosted. Now it's back. So yeah, have a look. It's open source, of course, and it's GPL. It works with the Kitsu backend, so the Kitsu backend that was also used for the rest of the film. But if you are savvy with coding, you can probably rearrange the even to Watchtower with your project. So for me, it's like a very cool to see it. It's just magic. It uses Canva, so it's super fast and responsive and useful. I don't know how these people do it. You know what else? Let's jump into some topics. First, this week alone, actually in the last like 3-4 days, I got people told me online on Instagram and on Twitter about jobs looking like companies looking for Blender people. So Warner Bros. Animation is looking for technical director for their Wings of Fire adaptation, and the job opening says experience with Blender preferred and experience with open source software development preferred. Isn't that amazing? Not only Blender preferred, but also open source in general. So yeah, super awesome. Warner Bros. Animation. The links are all in the description, by the way. And also, not only that, but are you familiar with Avatar by Nick Animation? Well, same. Nick Animation and Avatar Studios are looking for storyboard artists with Blender experience. Isn't that amazing? Like, just awesome. Like, here, must have Blender experience. It's not like preferred, it's must.
Bros animation. Not that it's industry standard yet, but getting there, and this thing is helping. So have a look, and again the links are in the description. And last but not least, announcement of the week, which you know from last week, is that the two alphas here. Although there's only like 2 or 3 features, small features added, so 3.1 is still the main release if you want to use it. I would say it's the beta. The alpha has all the features from the beta, of course, but the additions to 3.1 and the additions to 3.2, they are not that many. And in 3.1, you're actually going to see the splash screen, which you might see here in the thumbnail of the video, of this video. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's a great piece of art with an image that Oregon very nice. I'm not sure what he was used here. I think there's an article in Blender edition about it. I haven't seen it in notes. I'm not sure, but the blend file is going to be available once 3.1 is out. Alright, time to get into business. So I have the fight. Fight to get into the juicy part of the show, which is where the features. So, first of all, let's go with the title of this video. The subdivision modifier, which has received some tweaks in the last, well, since it was added, basically since it was ported into OpenSubdiv, to use the library OpenSubdiv Pixar's OpenSubdiv library. It was only using CPU, so it was very limited. You should have 39 or like a super high like character. That is fine, because as of anyway, like this could have been included last week, but OpenSubdiv has support for OpenGL library. Doesn't say much, but what we know is that now is CPU, and if the subdivision modifier is placed at the end of the file stack. So yeah, it's fantastic news. It's getting featured. Thank you so much for working on it. It's very long lasting request by the community. Performance, again, I said it for 3.0 and I said it again. 3.x series is focusing so much on performance that it's going to be a big done it. Not only to support more hardware, but also all hardware. Everybody gets benefits from it, not just the fancy graphics cards. You know what else was added related to the subdivision surface modifier? It is the vertex tracing subdivision modifier. This allows to mark vertices as perpendicular sharp to create interesting shapes for vision. So this you don't have to look at that pointiness. While this wasn't supported, edge tracing, but now vertex. So cool. So cool. How's the chat going by? The chat here when I listen to some and it gives my ears warm. It's like internet cafe, cyber cafe. What is cyber cafe? Doing okay? Audio this is good for updates. There's also some cycles. So, well, how much faster is it? How much faster? Well, this is how much faster is hard to measure, I guess, because it's just using CPU. So, from depends on slow.
Whoa! No way! Amazing!
that the cryptocurrency that was started as a joke to make fun of cryptocurrencies ends up being the leading cryptocurrency. That would be the most ironic outcome.
Jack, what are your thoughts on that? Is Bitcoin resilient enough to overcome that?
I think it's resilient, but also I think like you find, I mean, that's what attracts me to Bitcoin in the first place is the irreverence. A lot of that just brings it forward, and you know, at first go it makes it a little bit inaccessible, but as people get into it, it makes it more accessible and more credible. And I absolutely think the resilience is there. I think it's important to have fun as well. And anyway folks can express themselves. I think that goes back to the main idea of like how do we create a native currency for the internet? Anything that goes towards that path. Like that's whatever wackiness or fun we can have along the way, that's gonna make it a lot more enjoyable, and it's gonna make a lot more people want to use it.
I'd also point out there's nothing stopping someone from creating a Bitcoin wallet that's like fun and has memes, has dogs. That's possible as well. Great. Let's move on.
Right now at this point.
Let's move on to the next topic, which is Bitcoin and energy. It's a really hot topic that lots of people are talking about. Let's start with Elon. You've been vocal on this. You've said that. I mean, you said many things about it. You've also said that Tesla will resume payments in Bitcoin payments if the renewable energy is approximately 50% and sort of looks like it's on a positive future trend. What do you think the state of things are with respect to that?
Yeah, so I do think that there appears to be a positive trend in the energy usage of Bitcoin. Actually, part of this is due to the drop in Bitcoin price. What I observed, or what I thought I was seeing, there may be some disagreements on this, but from when Tesla announced that it had acquired Bitcoin and was doing Bitcoin transactions, there was a massive run-up in the Bitcoin price, and also a massive increase in the amount of energy used to mine Bitcoin. And I think I understand renewable energy quite a bit. I mean, Tesla does solar and interacts with a lot of wind generation through our mega pack, because basically to store energy from wind and from solar. So we're pretty plugged into the renewable energy industry. And there's just no way that you could basically double or triple the amount of energy in such a short period of time with renewables. You could shovel coal that fast. And so like, look, this is too sketchy. Tesla's mission is accelerating the advent of sustainable energy. We can't be the company that does that and also not do appropriate diligence on the energy usage of Bitcoin. So all I did was I said, look, we're going to suspend Bitcoin transactions for now. We're not selling any Bitcoin, nor am I selling anything personally, or nor is SpaceX selling any Bitcoin. Again, I want to emphasize, SpaceX, Tesla, and I own Bitcoin. I also own a little bit of Ethereum and Doge, but the companies just own Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin that I own is worth much more than the Ethereum or Doge. So clearly, if I'm, these actions negatively affect me financially. If I was clearly financially motivated, then I would not express this reticence about Bitcoin energy usage. Now, it looks like Bitcoin is shifting a lot more towards renewables, and a bunch of the heavy-duty coal plants that were being used, unequivocally being used, this is not a question mark, have been shut down, especially in China. So I think it's probably, I want to do a little bit more diligence to confirm confirm that the percentage of renewable energy usage is most likely sort of at or above 50%, and that there is a trend towards increasing that number. And if so, then Tesla will resume Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin. So I think we want to just do a little bit more diligence, and I think, but most likely the answer is that Tesla would resume accepting Bitcoin, most likely.
That's good to hear. I would agree with that. Kathy?
Yeah, may I ask you a question? Elon, I'm not quite sure if you saw the paper that Square and ARC did together on making Bitcoin mining a part of a utility, a broad-based utility ecosystem, whereby, the overage from sunshine or wind powers the Bitcoin mining machine, thereby enabling the proliferation of renewables to a much faster extent or at a faster rate than otherwise would be the case. What do you think of that?
Well, the problem is that in order to operate so-called mining or hashing rigs, in order to operate a bunch of hashing rigs, effectively, you have to run them 24/7, which means you need base load. You can do that with solar and wind plus battery, but if you only did it based on solar wind overage, your hashing rig utilization would be much less. So you'd be at a disadvantage.
Sure.
Hydro or geothermal are great as renewable means. I'm also pro-nuclear. I think modern nuclear power plants are safe, contrary to what people may think. I really think it's possible to make very extremely safe nuclear. I'm talking about fission. You don't need fusion. And then of course fusion, you just got that big fusion reactor in the sky called the sun. Comes up every day. But I think a combination of solar and wind plus stationary storage will get you that base load so you can run hashing 24/7.
Jack, I'm curious, you stated that Bitcoin incentivizes renewable energy. That's what we're talking about now. Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Elon said and Kathy mentioned, but it's also incentivizing a lot of innovation in just energy space and just like looking at unused energy. There's a company called Great American Mining that caps the methane flares on oil fields to power their rigs, and you just imagine, and you mentioned nuclear, Elon, as well. Just imagine all the unused energy that is just being wasted every single day, and being able to get that energy and converting it into a secure, sound money system for the planet feels like a worthy trade-off, and that's the sort of incentive that I think is most powerful. Is like, how do we reuse what is being currently just dumped on the ground and wasted and not considered, and how do we do that at scale? And I think that's a bigger conversation that I think is missing. But I agree with everything that Elon has said, and also the paper we put forth.
I'm curious if any of you have thoughts on how what the industry can do to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. And like Elon specifically, could Tesla Energy or Starlink play a role?
Well, I think Tesla can play a role. Tesla's literal reason for existence. The reason I've put so much of my life energy into Tesla, which is a lot. In fact, I would say that I've had some pretty tough life experiences, and Tesla is responsible for probably 2/3 of all personal and professional pain combined. Just to give you a sense of perspective there. So this is a hella hard situation. But we do solar, commercial solar retrofit, as well as the solar roof, and we make consumer battery packs called Powerwall for houses and small businesses, and then the utility scale, which are gigantic. We've done now a number of gigawatt-hour installations. That's a lot. And a lot of them actually have been for load leveling the grid. Mostly they are, and combined with the first really big one we did, which is 100 megawatt installation in Australia. That's actually helped stabilize a huge portion of the South Australian grid. because it's able to react so fast. In fact, at first, they've got a billing system in Australia that I think works at the sort of millisecond level, and we were operating at the microsecond level. So the system was operating so fast that the rendering system couldn't see it. But so Tesla's certainly doing a lot to enable renewables, especially wind and solar. And in fact, the limiting factor for us right now is cell production. So we need to both internally get the Tesla internal battery cells produced, as well as increase supply from suppliers. Generally, when I talk to our suppliers, they say, how many cells would you like us? How many cells can you make? Because sometimes they're like concerned, like, well, is Tesla going to compete with them on cells? I'm like, no. If you want to make the cells, be our guest. It's just that we need a crazy number of batteries, and they need to be done. It also needs to be mined and produced and manufactured in an ethical and environmentally sound way. So, Tesla, we really do aspire to be the good guys, like, to be a company that people can believe in. That doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but that's what we're trying. So, yeah, but I think generally hydro, especially existing hydro, is good for mining. Geothermal, there's lots of places in the world that have geothermal energy. Like I said, nuclear is also good. Yeah, I think just I'm like as I said earlier, the expectation is not like that the energy production must be pure as the driven snow, but it must it can't be using it also cannot be using the world's dirtiest coal, which was for a moment there. That's just difficult for Tesla to support in that situation. So I think, but I do think long-term renewable energy will actually be the cheapest form of energy. It just doesn't happen overnight. But as long as there is a conscious and determined and real effort by the mining community to move towards renewables, then obviously Tesla can support that.
That's great. Kathy, we've been talking a lot about energy, but many institutions are facing questions around Bitcoin's relationship with ESG. Can you maybe speak a little bit more to what is S and G in ESG and how Bitcoin might support those?
Sure. So E, of course, is environmental, S is social, and G is governance. And there is a massive movement afoot in the institutional world, especially, to embrace ESG and make sure that their asset managers are doing the same. So if we've just talked about environmental, and I really do believe that Bitcoin will be much more environmentally friendly, certainly, than traditional gold mining or the traditional financial services sector. In many ways, it already is, and it's just going to get better that way. In terms of social, I know that many institutions, when they are thinking of social, they think of diversity and equity, pay equity, and all of that. But from our point of view, the disruptive innovation point of view, social is much more than that. It is saving lives, of course, autonomous technology, that would be another topic for Elon. But in this case, allowing access to payment technology, as Jack is saying, everywhere around the world without friction. And just back to the remittance example, I think if I've got these stats correctly, there are certain countries in the world that are incredibly dependent on remittances for GDP. Tonga, 37%, El Salvador, which just deemed Bitcoin legal currencies 24%, Nepal 24%, and I think the remittance industry globally, roughly 700 billion. So saving people these egregious fees, think about it, you're paying anywhere from 8% to, as Jack said, 30%. of your $100 that you're sending back to your family. That is social responsibility, I would submit, as is just the economic empowerment that Bitcoin will enable. We've talked about that already. And I know that Alex Gladstein is going to be talking later about the 4.3 billion people in the world who are hostage to authoritarian regimes, or the 1.3 billion who are living in double-digit and triple-digit inflation, if not more. Saving them from the destruction of their purchasing power certainly is a noble social goal. So we expand social to be much more than the traditional ESG community. And then on governance, you've got the transparency of the ecosystem. It's completely transparent, unlike the opaqueness of financial systems and the toll takers in the traditional financial world. And I think a huge part of governance in the Bitcoin ecosystem are the Bitcoin core developers. Now, before I met them, and I've had the pleasure and the honor of meeting many of them, that was a part of this ecosystem I didn't understand. But actually getting to sit down and talk to them, if I have a learning curve need, it certainly is on the technology side. But in terms of talking to them about economics, economic theory, failed monetary regimes historically, they know economic history, many of them, better than anyone I've ever met. So that gives me a great degree of confidence that they believe they are on a noble mission. They could be paid a lot more than they're being paid right now if they worked at Google or Facebook or some of these other areas. But they've chosen, this sense of purpose for a noble goal, and they have incredibly strong technology backgrounds. As well as a good understanding of economic history, especially monetary history, and it gives me a great deal of comfort as I think about the governance of the ecosystem, much more so than I think we would find in other financial ecosystems. And just to give you an example of that, I think 2 years, we were talking about, there's a big debate about reorganizations. I know in the Ethereum network right now. Well, we saw the 4 Bitcoin developers and others at work back in 2019 when Binance tried to reorganize in order to reclaim 7,000 Bitcoin that were hacked. And they just wouldn't allow it. So we've already had some very good tests of the Bitcoin ecosystem, including developers. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. And it's a great transition to the next topic area, which is Bitcoin ethos. And what is Bitcoin ethos? I mean, Bitcoin was born as open source, and it's very transparent. There's also a staunch defense from the community around decentralization and a lot of the core principles of Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about that and what makes it special. Jack, Square has done a lot to support open source Bitcoin. Can you tell us a little bit about what Square has done and what advice you'd have for other institutions looking to follow in its footsteps?
Yeah, I mean, I was very skeptical of corporations when I was a kid, and I'm still skeptical of corporations today. And as we've used corporations to be, they've been great vessels for what we need to do and the ideas that we need to bring to the world. But, Bitcoin is not that. And when we were considering Bitcoin and how Square intersected, I was really concerned with how we don't disrupt the community in a negative way, how we promote what is amazing about it, and how we help it grow in that way, in the way that it wants to. So we created your team, Steve, which is Square Crypto, which is hiring open source developers to work on whatever they want and whatever they think is most important to help Bitcoin. We created an organization called Coco, which we gave up all of our crypto patents so that the community can use them in defense against trolls and some some crazy characters we won't name, and we continue to find ways that, following that Bitcoin path, we're going to create a hardware wallet. We're probably going to do a lot more in hardware. Everything that we do in the space is going to be completely open source, from the hardware design to the software, taking in the community's push, and we're building a developer platform as well in the same open development, open source, and completely transparent. So I think as institutions or companies like ours consider getting in this space, I think contribution back to the community is important. Tesla did this with accepting payments for Tesla and finding security holes and improving the stack. And as I said before, we can't just see this as an asset that we own and an investment vehicle. This is something that has the potential to change everything in the lives of everyone on the planet better in some small, maybe marginal way, but those margins will be meaningful as they compound over time.
Great. Elon, you've tweeted before that any wallet that doesn't give the user their private key should be avoided at all costs. Can you tell us more about why is that important, and how does what's its relationship with decentralization?
Well, it's difficult to say that if you own crypto in an exchange and the exchange does not give you private keys, it's not clear that you own anything. I mean, if there's something that, if that exchange breaks or is hacked or or is subject to seizure by the government or something like that, your crypto is gone. So in order to actually have properly decentralized finance, which I'm a fan of, I think it makes sense, then you have to own your private keys. And you should be the only one who has your private keys. So if you're the only one who has the private keys, then you own it. If someone else has your private keys, effectively they own it too. And the security of your crypto is then dependent upon them or any entity that can affect them. So I think what Jack's doing sounds like a good idea to have a hardware wallet that's the only thing that contains your private keys. Like that's like in terms of sort of empowering the people, which I very much believe in. Then I think you want to have people have their own wallets and be the only ones that have the private keys to that wallet. So-called wallet, the other side of the crypto.
I agree. And I think we'll see an emergence too of new solutions that use multi-sig, like with the 2 of 3 keys, where the user has 2 keys and then you get assisted custody by having an institution hold a 3rd key. Can be a good solution as well.
Yeah. Well, you can just put your private key in something that has dual access or voting access as an application on an existing one.
Right. So the Bitcoin community is known for staunchly defending Bitcoin's principles. Sometimes it can be rude and aggressive, but I think what it stems from is just a desire to not have wealthy or powerful people or institutions negatively impacting Bitcoin or sort of changing the rules in favor of them. I'm curious to hear from each of you what role you feel like you and your own institutions, your own companies, what role can you play in Bitcoin, and how do you positively impact it without having these negative drawbacks? Kathy, maybe start with you.
Sure. Yes. Well, ARC has stood for 2 things: democratization and transparency. We're the closest you'll find to venture capital fund in the public equity markets, and I kind of feel that Bitcoin, or we have Bitcoin's DNA from that point of view. One of the things in terms of democratization is education. We have one of our missions, values, is to educate, and I do believe that that some of Yassine El-Mandra's white papers, Yassine's our lead crypto analyst, who's worked very closely with you, Steve, on this conference, are helping the cause. We've done, and not only for retail investors, we found that we had to do a bit more when it came to institutional investors, just because of the way that they invest and the way they like to receive information. So just like in our investments, we've been, the retail community has been more attracted to us first, and now the institutional community is coming along. So I do think our transparency of research, especially in the social world, social media, pushing our research out for free to anyone, is part of our way of helping the community. And I do think encouraging, and this is something that Jack just said, I would encourage the support of the Bitcoin core developer community. As I said before, it's amazing to me, having gotten to know some of them, how strong their sense of purpose is here, and so we'd like to be a helpful in making that happen as well.
That's great. Jack, how about you? How do you view your own personal role and the companies you run?
I think my own personal role through the companies I run is to really push for more decentralization. Like everything that we intend to do with the wallet, being non-custodial, building a developer platform, focusing on non-custodial solutions. On the Square side is important, being completely open development and open source, but I also think it's important on the Twitter side as well. My biggest focus right now is on the social media protocol. We're calling it Blue Sky. It's super early, but we've learned a lot from what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin and why that's important. I've learned a lot in that sense as well, and I think just continuing to push on that thread and show it with our actions every single day in support of this community that's taught me so much, and I think will benefit so many people. That's one focus on it.
What about letting Twitter advertisers pay in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I think enabling anyone. I mean, if we had Bitcoin or native currency for the internet before Twitter started, like it just creates so many different business models that we wouldn't have to be so dependent upon advertising generally. And I do believe that that we have them, any form of payment that they want to use, we should be able to take. So absolutely, but I'm more focused on like how do we create economic incentives in the network itself without having to rely on advertising.
Yeah, it's just that the money has to come off of the crypto so-called coins, the hash strings, have to come off and get translated into real products and services. So the more sort of off-ramps there are to real products and services, even at the institutional level, although I mean there are certainly many small advertisers on Twitter, it seems like accepting Bitcoin, maybe some other cryptos for advertising payments on Twitter would be supportive of Bitcoin.
And also looking at just general commerce through Twitter. But
that was weird.
Sorry, what? Elon?
I was asking Jack if he's going to do it.
A product announcement today. Elon, how about you? You obviously you're a big personality on Twitter. What are your thoughts on your role and your company's role in Bitcoin and sort of preserving the ethos?
Yeah, I mean, I generally think we should do things that benefit the people as a whole and increase the probability that the future is good. So, I think to me it just seems self-evident that we should kind of take these set of actions most likely to make the future good. And I think probably crypto or at least some of the cryptocurrencies will make the future better, most likely. It's not, I think these things are probabilities, but I think it's probably better for there to be a prosperous Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, maybe some others in the future. And I think it can have an empowering effect for individuals and increase the power of the individual relative to government. It really, if you think of government is just a corporation in the limit. So sometimes some people are like against corporations but for government. It's like, guys, hey, government is just a corporation in the limit. It's the biggest corporation of all, and it's got a monopoly on violence. So if you don't like corporations, you should really hate government.
There you go. All right. We got about, we'll try to wrap up in 10 minutes. So let's move on to future of Bitcoin. So Tesla and Square both put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Kathy, I'm curious to hear from you. What advice would you have for other institutions looking to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet?
Well, I guess the first piece of advice is, just make sure, and I actually learned this after both Square and Tesla put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. The Bitcoin is being treated as an intangible asset. And so we need to get FASB to reconsider this, because with an intangible asset, if the asset goes up in price, it can't be marked up on their books. But if it goes down, it must be marked down. So, there's some asymmetry there, which is, we need to change that, given what we believe Bitcoin is. And I do believe if, I'll harken back to something, well, it was either Elon or Jack said, think about it, you take away the boundaries, the different currencies, just think about how explosive growth could be and how wide-reaching taking the friction out of the system could be. So I would encourage corporations to think about that this ability to do business anywhere in the world, ultimately, obviously, we're paving the way here. That's certainly a consideration. It also will serve as a hedge against inflation, especially as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of emerging markets that are suffering from significant inflation. In other words, the purchasing power of those populations is going down. So they are going to migrate to Bitcoin and other ways to preserve purchasing power. And again, being able to sell to them in that kind of currency will be very useful. I'd also suggest, once again, this idea of deflation, I think, is going to be a real thing. There's going to be good deflation caused by innovation, so demand will boom because of that. There's going to be bad deflation because so many companies out there have not been investing enough in innovation. Their products are going to go obsolete, as and they're going to be stuck trying to service the debt that they piled on because their shareholders wanted profits and wanted them now. So they leveraged up to buy back their shares and pay dividends, and so I think that's going to be the source of bad deflation and counterparty risk. And we learned from 08-09 that counterparty risk can be devastating. And almost cataclysmic. So a hedge against that as well, I think, would be another reason to do it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of like Tesla's bank balances in Europe have negative interest rates. It drives me crazy. I mean, technically, if you've got like 2% inflation on 1% interest, you're technically minus 1% return. But nonetheless, it is quite annoying to just see your bank balance drop in real time in Europe. Europe has negative interest rates. This is insane.
Paying the banks, the banks to hold
the bank to keep your money. I'm like, what?
It is crazy.
Like, definitely move that into Bitcoin.
I believe Ray Dalio said, buy Bitcoin and not bonds. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, you talked about design being an underfunded area in Bitcoin. And Elon earlier mentioned, usability could improve a lot. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. What do you see as the future of how can design impact Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Bitcoin network is beautifully designed as a protocol in the way it works. I mean, it went after a single problem and it does it in an absolutely astounding way. But I think the endpoints of people getting into it is still a little bit confusing. So I think the more energy we spend on wallets and making sure that the wallets are simple and accessible and they're non-custodial as well. Yeah. I think the best example of this is that I know of is probably this wallet called Moon, and it's just simple, straightforward. It's a great. It does an amazing thing with key management that my mom and friends new to Bitcoin can understand. Does amazing storage, and it also has a very clever implementation of Lightning, so that you can use it in a transactional way without having to think about it, just with QR codes in a way that makes sense. So more work like that, I think, really brings us forward.
Great. Let's wrap things up with a final question for each of you. I guess what is your hope for Bitcoin? How it can impact the world? Let's see, Elon, do you want to start with that? So what's your hope for Bitcoin?
Well, my hope for I guess crypto in general is that it can improve the efficiency of the information system that we call money. So if the core efficiency of money is improved and money has less error, where, like I said, error is like any kind of government interference or fraud or anything like that, this will naturally lead to basically a better standard of living and more power to the individual, which I very much agree with.
Great. Kathy?
Yeah, and I would segue from what Elon just said is, money has powerful network effect qualities. And so, when we talked about ESG earlier, I think that, of course, that aspiration, having, this money be the best from an ESG point of view, that's really talking about solving some of the world's problems right now, which we definitely want to do. But I also am very excited about this idea of network effect and the convergence of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence from a technology point of view. I think, think about the internet in the earliest days. We couldn't imagine what was going to happen, but the impetus to growth was pretty incredible. So I am looking at this rules-based monetary policy, making for better lives around the world, as we've just said. But I'm also looking at the technology itself and the convergence between blockchain technology and artificial intelligence, to change the world in ways that we cannot imagine right now, solving even more problems, but creating more opportunities as well, which is the history of technology and disruptive innovation.
Jack, what's your hope for Bitcoin?
My hope is that it creates world peace or helps create world peace. I mean, Elon said it earlier, we have all these monopolies of violence, and the individual doesn't have power. And the amount of cost and distraction that comes from our monetary system today is real, and it takes away attention from the bigger problems. Some of the bigger problems that Elon is trying to solve, like get us to a multi-planetary humanity. All these distractions that we have to deal with on a daily basis take away from those bigger goals that affect every single person on this planet, increasingly so. So it may sound a little bit ridiculous, but you fix that foundational level and everything above it improves in such a dramatic way. So it's going to be long term, but my hope is definitely peace.
That's fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank all three of you for giving us your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. the B word is not just this discussion, but we have a lineup of incredible speakers and content. So I encourage everyone to check it out. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Thank you all.
Welcome everybody to the B word. I'm Steve Lee, the lead of Square Crypto, and I'm here today to moderate a discussion about Bitcoin that will span from what makes it special to its relationship with energy, the community ethos, and the future of Bitcoin. I'm joined by three special guests. First is Kathy Wood, founder, CEO, and CIO of ARK Invest. Next is Elon Musk, Techno King of Tesla and Chief Engineer of SpaceX. And finally, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Square and CEO of Twitter. So we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get to the talk and get right to it. I'm going to start out by asking each of you a question, which is, what's shaped and influenced your views on Bitcoin? And let's start with Kat.
Okay, Steve, thank you. Well, the first thing was our focus on disruptive innovation. So starting in 2011, Brett Winton, our director of research, who I know will be on the program later, he started talking about this thing called Bitcoin at the time. And it was a curiosity as we were doing our brainstorms in research, but as we learned more about this open source ecosystem, that might fulfill the role of the payment system that the internet neglected to build into the system, not expecting commerce. We thought, this might be something. And then I became even more interested when I realized that my economics would come into play as well here. And Art Laffer, my mentor from USC, and a monetary scholar, in 2014, I asked him if he would collaborate on a paper on Bitcoin. And he was a bit of a naysayer at first, but agreed to read the paper. He read the paper, tore it up, and from an economics point of view, really wanted to understand this. And he said, I think you got something here. This is a rules-based monetary system. I've been waiting for this for my entire career. So the combination of disruptive innovation generally, economics on top of that, and the huge misunderstanding out there as to what this is, that was intriguing and launched our research effort.
Thank you. Elon, what's influenced your views on Bitcoin?
Well, I've thought about money for quite a while, obviously since the PayPal days. And then the companies that preceded that, X.com, which I created, and Confinity, which Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, Luke Howry, and others created. We combined the companies and made PayPal. So we're thinking about money for a long time. And really, it's best to think of money as an information system, primarily an information system for labor allocation. For practical purposes, it exists in a series of heterogeneous databases, like very different databases in bank mainframes around the world. It moves quite slowly in reality. It seems to move fast sometimes, and it does with PayPal, which is real time. But the vast majority of the systems out there are batch processing, so the actual reconciliation may take 1 to 5 business days, sometimes longer. And you have the ACH system, which is ancient and still in operation, which allows transfers, effectively like a check would be an ACH transfer, but it's not secure. And you've got the credit card systems, which are also not secure. It'd be like handing your username and password to a stranger in a restaurant if you buy a meal. So there's definitely an opportunity for something that is better from an information theory standpoint. So and there you can think of like data on a network. I think is the way to view it. What has the most throughput? What has the least error? What drops the fewest packets? Fraud, for example, being a source of error. and the government interference in currencies being a source bearer. But it's fundamentally an information system, so I think it makes sense to support something that improves the quality of information with which we conduct the economy. And Bitcoin is a candidate for that. It does, I think, some things well, and it's obviously it's evolving, and there are additional things like Lightning being done on top of Bitcoin. But Bitcoin per se is mostly solving for scarcity, or rather solving for essentially having no throat to choke, decentralized. So there's no one who can be coerced in any way to empty their Bitcoin account. Well, I guess they could technically, but on an individual basis, but the system as a whole cannot. And it has an open ledger, which is also quite good. But transaction volume is low. Transaction cost is high, and usability for the average person is not yet very good. But it has a lot of potential. And I should say that, like, I'm not, and I apologize for taking a long time, but there's certainly a lot to say. In general, I'm a supporter of Bitcoin and the idea of cryptocurrency in general. But as I said publicly, we need to watch out for crypto taking, especially Bitcoin, using proof of work to maybe use energy that's maybe a bit too much and not necessarily good for the environment. So, but on balance, I support Bitcoin, and I'm not an investor. The only publicly traded stock I own is Tesla, and the only significant thing I own outside of Tesla is my SpaceX stock that help create both companies. So, apart from that, I do own Bitcoin, and Tesla owns Bitcoin, SpaceX owns Bitcoin, and I do personally own the Ethereum and Dogecoin, of course. So.
Okay, great, thank you. And we'll get into some of those issues in more depth as well. Jack, how about you? What shaped your views of Bitcoin?
The network and the community. It's deeply principled. It's weird as hell. It's always evolving, and it just reminded me of the internet when I was a kid. And I encountered all the cypherpunks when I was fairly young, and this was a topic of discussion for years. I didn't touch it until 2008 when we started Square. Elon and teams at X and PayPal inspired a lot of what we were trying to do, trying to bring in more to a physical world, but we encountered this crazy predatory system that was slow, that was obtuse, and I think one of the things that we tried to do, which X and PayPal also tried to do, is build an abstraction layer around this complication and around this predatory nature that the financial industry can tend to be, and make it work for people. But when I saw Bitcoin in 2009, you see a chance to replace the whole foundation. And everything that Elon was talking about in terms of ACH and the credit card networks were built with very different agendas in a very different time frame, and it's crazy that they still exist and they have scaled, but they just are not relevant to today, and they're certainly not relevant to the future, especially when you consider the entire world and countries like Nigeria or Ghana or India, and its interconnection with countries like the United States and Canada and all over Europe. So what really drove my thinking and drives my passion around it is, like, if the internet gets a chance to get a native currency, what will that be? And to me, it's Bitcoin because of those principles, because of that creation story, because of its resilience, because of the number of tests it's been. But what inspires me the most is just the community driving it. It just reminds me of the early internet. It's the only reason that I have a career, because I learned so much from people like who are building Bitcoin today, and I continue to learn in that sense, and I'm so grateful for it.
So that's a good segue into the next question I'd like to ask you, Jack, is you said before that Bitcoin changes everything. Can you speak more to that?
Well, I just think that you know, a lot of what we experience in life, when you really get down to the foundation, a lot of our monetary policies, a lot of our monetary systems cause so much distraction and so much cost. And when you get to a system where you have the potential for people to truly own it, they can verify it themselves. You don't have to have trust going in. You don't have to trust it at all. You can verify it through source code or whatever your appetite is. And that any particular person can help drive the future of it. And at the same time, it's not controlled by any state. It's not controlled by any bank. It's not controlled by any corporation. And these three parties of people who participate in the network, people who mine, and also the developers, constantly debating the correct roadmap and the way forward is a beautiful thing. And I don't know of many other consensus-based models that have existed at that scale for this long with this amount of success. And we're still fairly early. So when, you know, I met a woman in Ethiopia 2 years ago, and she was trying to create the lift for Ethiopia. Elon, I think I reached out to you at that time as well because she really wanted some Teslas. She still has to take paper fiat cash from her passengers and pay all of her drivers in the same way because there's no monetary system that she can utilize. There's nothing digital. And Africa as a continent is hugely interconnected from a monetary standpoint, but also hugely taxed in that same way. So a lot of the potential that I see, you know, the internet having a native currency helps her build her business in a much faster way. And also, if you consider something like Bitcoin existing before YouTube, before Twitter, before Facebook, a lot of the business models that we have today would not be the same. We would certainly not have the dependency we have upon the advertising business model if Bitcoin existed pre-Twitter. And I think the amount of business models that enables, the amount of innovation it enables going forward, especially when you can consider the whole internet instead of going country by country by country by country, which you have to whenever you're doing with finance, it really just opens the aperture. And that is what I want to see in my lifetime is a currency that is standard and sound for the internet that everyone can use.
Great. A hallmark of Bitcoin is its fixed supply of 21 million coins. Elon referenced that earlier. It may be the first system that humans have created that humans cannot later change. And Kathy, I'm curious, with your background in monetary history and macroeconomics, what are your thoughts on that type of system?
Oh, well, I'll recount the story about Art Laffer and our going through the paper. And he said, as I said, first rules-based monetary system, global, ever. This is a very big idea. Once we had convinced him of the ecosystem itself. Now, this is the role that it's playing, given that the rule is a quantity rule, that 21 million units, is really a store of value role. So there are three roles of money. Store of value, very important. The means of exchange, so for transactions, and the unit of account. Every good priced in terms of whatever the unit is. So store of value is its primary use right now. The others exist. Unit of account, reserve currency of the crypto asset ecosystem. That's being seeded a little bit towards stable coins right now. But the store of value is a very big role, and means of exchange with apps built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, we think is going to become more of a reality. Right now, high value transactions take place over Bitcoin, and that is a very useful role. So we look at those, and I remember saying to Art, how big could this be? And he said, well, how big is the US monetary base? Well, today it's $8 trillion. $8 trillion. At the time we were talking, it was $4 trillion. So we've gone through another crisis since then. And so this store of value, this idea that purchasing power will go up over time if demand rises relative to supply. Supply ultimately fixed at 21 million units. That's a very good thing. Purchasing power going up globally around the world. And this idea that it's a hedge against confiscation of wealth, and that can take place in a myriad of ways. But inflation, and especially hyperinflation in emerging markets, is the primary way. Talk about destroying purchasing power. So that's a very big idea. And I'll also mention deflation. In some ways, it's a hedge against deflation. I know some people are confused that we at ARC think that we're in a deflationary environment here in the United States. If that is true, the odds of a hyperinflation in the rest of the world, especially in emerging markets, is also true. So, but this deflation, and we learned from 08-09, there's counterparty risk associated with deflation, and I think Bitcoin would be a hedge against that eventuality as well. So it's a very big idea.
Right. I suspect among us there's not a lot of debate about Bitcoin's potential as a store of value, but Jack, you referenced earlier it being or becoming the native currency of the internet. Can you speak more to that, and also how it relates to maybe how institutions think about it?
Yeah, I mean, like just simple example. If I happen to be in Ghana and my family's in Nigeria, currently I can take anywhere from and I need to send money back, anywhere from 10 to 30% off the top just to send that money back. Whereas if you just focus on the worldwide remittance problem, Bitcoin solves so many of those problems today instantly without having to go through any intermediaries or any slowness or complicated systems at a corporation or state created. So I think having sound money that is separate from the state is the idea. Having it completely verifiable by everyone, including the state, including corporations, including individuals, including developers who want to build on top of it, is quite powerful, and that's what keeps it secure and strong. And I think that's we need more of that, which is why one of the reasons why this conversation is so important is as entities come into the space, it's not just buying an asset and holding on to an asset and treating it as an investment. There's something special that created this, and something precious and something very unique, which has to be protected, and we need to do whatever we can to help that thrive as well.
Elon, I'm curious your opinion on this. You mentioned earlier about Bitcoin's throughput, the importance of throughput, maybe some concerns around Bitcoin. Can you speak? Do you think Bitcoin can become peer-to-peer cash?
Well, Bitcoin does have a fundamental scarcity limit at the base layer that's designed in. That doesn't mean you can't have some layer 2 system theory like Lightning. And I understand Lightning is doing well in some small countries. There's some question mark as to whether you need a money transmitter license. Just a debate as to whether that's needed, given that it is not open ledger. So that's a whole separate debate, of course. But Bitcoin by itself simply cannot scale to be the monetary system for the world at base layer. But with a second layer, this is possible depending upon how that second layer is implemented. Yeah, that's part of why I think there may be some merit to so, something that may seem silly, like Ethereum, like Dogecoin. I think Ethereum also, the three things I own outside of SpaceX and Tesla, and obviously it's Neuralink, a boring company, but of any significance are Bitcoin by far, and then some Ethereum and some Doge. So if the price of Bitcoin goes down, I lose money. I'm not sort of, I might pump, but I don't dump. So, it's not a case of, I definitely do not believe in getting the price high and selling or anything like that. And I would like to see Bitcoin succeed. I think there's some merit to, this is not a slam on Bitcoin, there's some merit to considering something that has higher max transaction rates and lower transaction cost, and kind of seeing how far you could take a single layer network where the exchanges act as a de facto second layer. I think you could probably take that further than people realize, and as bandwidth increases over time, latency decreases. SpaceX's Starlink is actually playing a role in this, and I think long term people will probably have access to worldwide access to gigabit level connectivity at low latency, and so at low cost. And so then your base layer could do a lot of transactions if you take that into account. So yeah, but like I said, Bitcoin with a layer 2 system, so they could scale to do a vast number of transactions. Same goes for Ethereum.
Question about the scaling at the layer 1. The concern from the past 5 years of debate in the Bitcoin community is that would sacrifice too much decentralization and hurt the censorship-resistant properties of Bitcoin. I'm curious if what are your thoughts on that? Are you sensitive to that? And are you concerned about losing some of the special properties of Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency by scaling at layer 1?
Yeah, I mean, these things it's helpful to use the physics tools of thinking and say, scale up, scale down, and see if it still makes sense. So if scaling up the transaction block doesn't make sense, why don't you scale it down? And have it be, so that somebody, with a laptop from 2008 can still run a Bitcoin node. Why not slow it down? Oh, you want to slow it down? Well, maybe you're at the wrong number then.
There's actually people, there are members in the community that do want to slow it down. but I understand.
It's silly. The reality is, the average person is not going to run a Bitcoin node. So this is and Bitcoin, it was a lot of clever ideas, but these parameters were set, I don't know, in 2008 or something, maybe 2009. And there've been some improvements since then, but not a lot. So, it's sort of like there was still in 2008 there was still a non-trivial number of people on modems. So, now it is quite common to get 100 megabit connection just for a house. Some houses have gigabit connections. So, and that trend is obviously in the direction of higher bandwidth and lower latency. And if somebody else doesn't do it, Starlink certainly will. So I have high confidence that you will be able to maintain a decentralized finance system while still having a much bigger blockchain, aka ASCII text ledger, a hash ledger. You can make that hash ledger bigger without suffering from decentralization as the average connectivity improves, obviously.
What idea would be to run to put a Bitcoin full node in Starlink terminals? That way more people would be running.
Actually, I have run this by the team at one point. I had this idea, which is kind of off the wall, but let's say you need a little space heater, and normally your space heater would just be pure entropy. But what if that space heater was also a Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge mining node? Pick your currency. And so then you'd be heated up, and you would also mine your crypto, and have connectivity in one.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean, better than running a space heater.
That caused you to be drawn towards Dogecoin.
I think there's the Doge community, I think, is somewhat irreverent, obviously, and has great memes and loves dogs, and I love dogs. It doesn't take itself too seriously, I think there's Occam's razor, which is the simplest answer is the most likely. The simplest answer is the most likely one. Then there's a friend. The most ironic outcome is the most likely one. And then there's a variant on that, which is the most entertaining outcome is the most likely one. So if that is true, the most ironic and entertaining outcome would be that the cryptocurrency that was started as a joke to make fun of people ends up being the leading cryptocurrency. That would be the most ironic outcome.
Is Bitcoin resilient enough to overcome that?
I think like you find, I mean, that's what attracts me to Bitcoin and is the irreverence. A lot of that just brings it forward, and at first go, it makes it a little bit inaccessible, but as people get into it, it makes it more accessible and more spreadable. And I think the resilience is there. I think it's important to have fun as well. And anyway folks can express themselves. I think that goes back to the main idea of like how do we create a native currency for the internet? Anything that goes towards that path. Like that's whatever wackiness or fun we can have along the way, that's gonna make it a lot more enjoyable, and it's gonna make a lot more people want to use it.
Point out there's nothing and as memes, as dogs, that's possible as well. Great, let's move on.
Right now at this point.
Let's move on to the next topic, which is Bitcoin and energy. It's a really hot topic that lots of people are talking about. Let's start with Elon. You've been vocal on this. You've said that. I mean, you said many things about it. You've also said that Tesla will resume payments in Bitcoin. It looks like it's on a positive future trend. What do you think the state of things are with respect to that?
Yeah, so I do think that there appears to be a positive trend in Bitcoin. Actually, part of this is due to the drop in Bitcoin price. What I observed, or what I thought I was seeing, there may be some disagreements on this, but from when Tesla announced that Bitcoin transactions, there was a massive run-up in the Bitcoin price. And also a massive increase in the amount of energy used to mine Bitcoin. And I think I understand renewable energy quite a bit. I mean, Tesla does solar and interacts with a lot of wind generation through our mega pack, because basically need to store energy from wind and from solar. So we're pretty plugged into the renewable energy industry. And there's just no way that you could basically double or triple the amount of energy in such a short period of time with renewables. You could shovel coal that fast. And so this is too sketchy. Tesla's mission is accelerating the advent of sustainable energy. We can't be the company that does that and also not do appropriate diligence on the energy usage of Bitcoin. So So all I did was I said, look, we're going to suspend Bitcoin transactions for now. We're not selling any Bitcoin, nor am I selling anything personally, or nor is SpaceX selling any Bitcoin. Again, I want to emphasize, SpaceX, Tesla, and I own Bitcoin. I also own a little bit of Ethereum and Doge, but the companies just own Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin that I own is worth more than the Ethereum or Doge. So clearly, if I'm these actions negatively affect me financially. If I was purely financially motivated, then I would not express this reticence about Bitcoin energy usage. Now, it looks like Bitcoin is shifting a lot more towards renewables, and a bunch of the heavy-duty coal plants that were being used, unequivocally being used, this is not a question mark, have been shut down, especially in China. So I think it's probably, I want to do a little bit more diligence to confirm that could confirm that the percentage of renewable energy usage is most likely sort of at or above 50%, and that there is a trend towards increasing that number. And if so, then Tesla will resume Bitcoin. Yeah. So I think we want to just do a little bit more diligence, and I think, but most likely the answer is that Tesla would resume accepting Bitcoin. Most likely.
Steve,
I would agree with that. Kathy?
Yeah, may I ask you a question? Elon, I'm not quite sure if you saw the paper Square
the land is dying.
On making Bitcoin mining a part of
out of control. Whatever comes, I will be ready.
PlayStation. The Bitcoin mining machine, thereby enabling the proliferation of renewables to a much faster extent, or at a faster rate than otherwise would be the case. What do you think of that?
Well, the problem is that in order to operate so-called
another deception deck.
in order to operate a bunch of hashing rigs,
I feel like our deck works pretty well
effectively.
against deception.
You have to run them 24/7, which means you need base load. You can do that with,
Oh, nice.
solar
What
and
did right
wind
at the
plus
start.
battery. But if you only did it based on solar wind overage, your hashing regularization would be much less. So you'd be at a disadvantage.
Sure,
Hydro or geothermal.
great.
Hydro or geothermal are great for as renewable means.
Come
also,
on, man.
Pro-nuclear. I think modern
I
nuclear
hate
power
that
plants
card
are
so
safe,
much.
contrary to what people may think. I really think it's possible to make very extremely safe nuclear. I'm talking about fission. You don't need fusion. And then of course fusion. You just got that big fusion reactor in the sky called the sun. It comes up every day. But I think a combination of solar and wind plus stationary storage will get you that base load so you can run hashing 24/7.
Jack, I'm curious. You stated that
my man has the centaur on down there.
Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Elon said and Kathy mentioned, but it's also incentivizing a lot of innovation in just energy space and just like looking at unused energy. There's a company called Great American Mining that caps the methane flares on oil fields to power their rigs. Yeah. And you just imagine, and you mentioned nuclear, Elon, as well. Just imagine all the unused energy that is just being wasted every single day. And being able to get that energy and convert it.
You can stream for HR. Who's HR?
Money system for the planet feels like a worthy trade-off, and that's the sort of incentive that I think is most powerful. Is like, how do we reuse what is being currently just dumped on the ground and wasted and
no, I'm locked inside of a cage.
At scale. And I think that's a bigger conversation that I think is missing. But I
can
agree
finish up this game and we can play
that Elon has said, and also the paper we put forth.
God's
I'm curious
Unchained.
if any of you have thoughts on how the industry, what the industry can do to accelerate this transition. And like Elon specifically, could Tesla Energy play a role?
Well, I think Tesla can play a role. Tesla's literal reason for existence. I mean, the reason I've put so much of my life energy into Tesla, which is
God.
In fact, I would say that I've
Can't even get back inside the
pretty
building.
tough life experiences, and Tesla is responsible for probably 2/3 of all personal and professional pain combined. Just to give you a sense of perspective there.
You can stream
so
for hours. Yeah,
this is a
I
hella
stream
hard
for
situation.
hours.
But we do solar,
I'm not really sure what to do
commercial
right now.
solar retrofit as well as the solar roof, and we make consumer battery packs called Powerwall for houses and small businesses, and then the utility scale, which are gigantic. We've done now a number of gigawatt hour installations. That's a lot. And a lot of them actually have been for load leveling the grid. Most of them are, and combined with big stuff, like the first really big one we did, which is 100 megawatt installation in Australia. That's actually
Your
helped
name's
stabilize a huge
Elijah?
portion of the South Australian grid because it's able to
I don't
react
know.
so fast. In fact, the first a billing system in Australia that I think works at the
Elijah.
millisecond level, and we were operating at the microsecond level. So the system was operating so fast that the rendering system couldn't see it. But so Tesla's certainly doing a lot to enable renewables, especially wind and solar. And in fact, the limiting factor for us right now is cell production. So we need to both internally get the Tesla internal battery cells produced, as well as increase supply from suppliers. Generally, when I talk to our suppliers, they say, how many cells would you like us? How many cells can you make? Because sometimes they're concerned, well, is Tesla going to compete with them on cells? I'm like, no. If you want to make the cells, be our guest. It's just that we need a crazy number of batteries, and they need to be done. It also needs to be mined and produced and manufactured in an ethical and environmentally sound way. So, Tesla, we really do aspire to be the good guys.
I got
to be a
cutthroat
company
inside
that
it.
people can believe in. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but that's what
I
we're
have no
trying.
hope winning this
So,
game anymore.
Yeah, but I think generally hydro, especially existing hydro, is good for mining. Geothermal, there's lots of places in the world that have geothermal energy. Nuclear is also good.
Well, I was gonna, if they didn't open the door again, I'd be like, banana again until they let me in, and then finally now I can say orange.
As I said earlier,
I'm glad I didn't say
the
banana.
expectation is not that the energy production must be pure as the driven snow, but it must. It can't be using. It also cannot be using the world's dirtiest coal, which was for a moment there. That's just difficult for Tesla to support in that situation. So I think, but I do think long-term renewable energy will actually be the cheapest form of energy. It just doesn't happen overnight. But as long as there is a conscious and determined and real effort by the mining community to move towards renewables, then obviously Tesla can support that.
That's great. Kathy, we've been talking a lot about energy, but many institutions are facing questions around Bitcoin's relationship with ESG. Can you maybe speak a little bit more to what is S&G and ESG and how Bitcoin might support those?
Sure. So E, of course, is environmental, S is social, and G is governance. And there is a massive movement afoot in the institutional world, especially, to embrace ESG and make sure that their asset managers are doing the same. So if you we've just talked about environmental, and I really do believe that Bitcoin will be much more environmentally friendly, certainly than traditional gold mining or the traditional financial services sector. In many ways, it already is. And it's just going to get better that way.
Bro, I don't know.
In terms of social, I know that many institutions, when they are thinking of social, they think of diversity and equity, pay equity, and all of that. From our point of view, the disruptive innovation point of view, social is much more than that. It is saving lives, of course, autonomous technology, that would be another topic for Elon. But in this case, allowing access to payment technology, as Jack is saying, everywhere around the world without friction. And just back to the remittance example, I think if I've got these stats correctly, there are certain countries in the world that are incredibly dependent on remittances for GDP. Tonga, 37%, El Salvador, which just deemed Bitcoin legal currencies 24%.
Oh, she's gonna grab my fucking blade of sticks or my rune of fire. She's gonna face me now. Great. Hi, Knife Deck. I'm just annoyed. Because I've lost this game. She grabbed my rune of fire and blade of sticks. So she can use... Okay, she didn't play it at all.
As Jack said, 30% of your $100 that you're sending back to your family. That is social responsibility, I would submit, as is just the economic
obviously we face, that's 6 damage.
We've talked about that already.
Warmonger Smith, that's gonna have 3 damage.
To be talking later
9.
About,
Alright, we're gonna try to finish this as much as we can. We can't buff him anymore. She has flank though, so we need to get rid of that.
Who are living in
Warmonger Smith.
Double-digit and triple-digit inflation, if not more.
Oh, I'm gonna be down by 1. Do you reckon we can survive this?
Certainly is a noble social goal. So we expand.
Oh, she can hide my. Oh, I don't think we can survive this.
And then on governance, you've got the transparency of the ecosystem. It's completely transparent, unlike the opaqueness of financial systems and the toll takers in the traditional.
If I would have faced with that, I would have been left with 1.
A huge part of governance in the.
If I survive this round, I can have lethal. No, she has the rune of fire.
Now,
God.
I met them, and I've had the pleasure and the honor of meeting.
No, she had her hidden chick hit me, and then basically I had only 2 cards in my hand. I had my blade of sticks and my rune of fire, and then I can't remember the name, but the hidden one that whenever it attacks your god, it copies a card from your hand. So both of them does 3 damage anyway, and they both have god blitz, so I can't do anything.
They know economic history, many of them. Better than
she copied the
room.
So annoyed.
So that
fucking deception.
Degree of confidence.
I hate playing in Mythic. Fuck.
They do believe they are on a noble mission. They could be paid a lot more than they're being paid right now if they were to.
Basically, it puts you in a random game, but it depends on your rank. So it puts you against other people in the same rank as you. So you'll never have to play someone who's a higher rank than you.
They have incredibly strong technology.
But since I'm in the highest rank, then I have to play against everyone who's in the highest rank.
Economic history, especially monetary history, and it gives me a great deal of comfort as I think about the governance of the ecosystem. Much more so.
Well, if you're in Mythic, then you will only play matches in Mythic.
And just to give you an example of that, I think.
But depending on how much you lose, you could drop rank, of course.
I know in the Ethereum network right now.
But the main thing is on the weekends you play a tournament event, and at the end of the tournament you can earn gods tokens, which is the crypto for the game, which is worth money.
Reclaim 7,000 Bitcoin that were hacked.
So everyone plays on to make sure to play their best deck on the weekend to win as many games, so they can earn more money.
So that would be my answer.
Thank you. And it's a great transition to the next topic area, which is Bitcoin ethos. And what is Bitcoin ethos? I mean, Bitcoin was born as open source and it's very transparent. There's also a staunch defense from the community around decentralization.
Thanks for the bits, Money Morrison.
Principles of Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about that. What makes it special.
We'll play a few more. I don't know how long I'm gonna play Gods, because I won like a few games, and I entered Mythic, and now it's just really, really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I was very skeptical of corporations.
When you play games in Mythic, it just feels like everyone always has the right counter to whatever you play, and it's so frustrating.
Oh no, it's a light deck. Great vessels for what we need to do, and the ideas that we need to bring to it. But Bitcoin is not that. And
to be fair, this is the first light deck I've come across
Bitcoin
today.
and how Square intersected, I was really concerned with how we don't disrupt the community in a negative way. How we
this is a great starting hand, actually.
What is amazing about it, and how we help it grow in that way, in the way that it wants to. So
here's the thing: do we play Enduring Shield first, or do we play Pyramid
hiring
Warden
open source
first?
developers to work on whatever they want and whatever they think is
we
most
actually play
important
Enduring Shield
to help Bitcoin.
first.
We created an organization called Coco.
Enduring Shield, it has 2 durability. Enduring Shield, then we play this,
so
and then we play this next.
In defense against trolls.
Or we'll see. Many different orders we could play.
Characters we won't name.
But it's a good starting hand here.
It's
actually an ideal starting hand for war, isn't it?
Following that Bitcoin path, we're going to create a hardware wallet. We're probably going to do a lot more in hardware.
Oh yeah, the
everything
buffs
that we do in
are coming.
space is going to be completely open source, from the hardware design to the software.
Yeah, see, I think we put this because this would give it to.
As well, and the same
I forgot he got nerfed.
Source,
I keep forgetting he gets nerfed.
And completely transparent. So I think as institutions or companies like ours consider getting in this space, I think contribution back to the community is important. Tesla did this with accepting payments for Tesla and finding security holes and improving the stack.
Just to make sure she dies if she does decide to
we
attack.
can't just see this as an asset that we own.
What do you have that can get rid of it?
No!
What the fuck?
Has the potential to change everything and make the lives of everyone.
God, and now she's gonna like buff everything. I actually
way,
hate it here.
Those margins will be meaningful as it compounds over time.
Great. Elon, you've tweeted before that any wallet that doesn't give the user their private key should be avoided at all costs. Can you tell us more about why is that important, and how does what's its relationship with decentralization?
Yeah, you can't. You turn down the world volume.
It's difficult to say that if you
She's literally changing the mouse sensitivity.
Crypto in an exchange, and that exchange does not give you your private keys, it's not clear that you own anything. I mean, if there's something that if that exchange breaks or is hacked or
well, okay. I want to clear the board.
To seizure by the government
so
or something like that.
So you can't buff. Just keep clearing the fucking board.
Your crypto is gone. So in order to actually have properly decentralized finance, which I'm a fan of, I think it makes sense. Then you have to own your private keys, and you should be the only one who has your private keys. So if you're the only one who has the private keys, then
a Nubian
then
redeemer. Disgusting.
If someone else has your private keys, effectively they own it too, and the security of your crypto is then dependent upon them.
Give your relic. Okay, so that'll give it 4. What is this?
So, yeah.
Alright, obviously I have to get rid of that.
I think what Jack said sounds like a good idea to have.
Well, I can definitely. The thing is, me attacking them is just going to result in me
that's the only thing that contains your private keys. Like that's like in terms of sort of empowering the people.
See, my health is already almost half of his because I have to keep clearing his board.
Their own wallets and be the only ones that have the private keys.
I need to actually start facing.
The other side of the crypto.
Oh, he's a D-ranker. Boo! Boo! Either he's a D-ranker or I fucked up his win condition and he gave up. But it's a fucking Thursday evening for them, probably. Oh, that's cringe. Oh well, I'll take the dub.
Yeah. Well, you could just
I
put your
really did
private
not want to
key
play
in
against the
something that
Zulai.
has dual access or voting access as an application on an existing network.
Right. So the Bitcoin community is known for staunchly defending Bitcoin.
What do you have to do, Alua?
Sometimes it can
Always
be
busy,
rude
okay?
and aggressive,
But
but
I never
I
get
think
shit done ever.
what it stems from is just a desire to not have
Give yourself
wealthy or
deadline, or have
powerful
someone
people
set a
or
deadline for you.
institutions,
I need to have a planner to like do shit at a certain time and get it done by a certain time.
Why don't you have someone else manage your deadlines? I feel I'm more productive when I have someone else give me a deadline than have myself set a deadline.
What role can you play?
Like if I give myself internal deadlines, I never follow them.
I really feel that actually.
Like that's why I get shit done at school.
ARC,
Yeah, sure. What do you need done?
Stood for two things: democratization and transparency. Democratization, the closest you'll find
You're
to,
procrastinating
venture
setting your
capital
deadlines as well.
Public equity markets, and I kind of feel that.
Deception dag.
I mean, Bitcoin, or we have Bitcoin's DNA from that point of view. One of the things in terms of democratization is education. We have one of our missions, values is to educate. And I do believe that that some of Yassine El-Mandra's white papers, Yassine's our lead crypto analyst, who's worked very closely with you, Steve, on this conference.
Oh, you got one?
Are helping the cause. We've done, and not only for retail investors, we found that we had to do a bit more when it came to.
I don't know, man. I think Miguel is dripping the hardest right now.
Just because of the way that they invest and.
Alright, we play this and then we'll play
Miguel,
this next. And if
he's got like some kind of like T-Rex head on with a fucking lightsaber, a dragon going around him with a fucking green belt.
Has been more attracted to us first, and now the institutional
community
with a hat on, with a flat belt.
I do think our transparency of research, especially
he just gets this, because I would not be happy if he gets
social media,
this.
pushing our research out for free to anyone is part of our way of helping the community. And I do think encouraging, this is something that Jack just said.
I was literally I was chilling over by Mariana, and fucking I could tell she told one of the other people to stand in between us because they're like bodyguarding her.
Hopefully she did not copy my Carnage sweep.
I even put myself in the corner.
Yeah. Sense of purpose.
So I'm hiding in the corner.
And so we'd like to be a help.
Because the bodyguards came after me.
The bodyguards came after
you.
Jack, how about you?
If you just go stand next to Mariana, like real close to her, they'll come after you.
My own personal role through the companies I run is.
You want to 1v1? Yeah, sure, we can 1v1. I'm thinking of hopping up.
Watch the dude in the robot suit, or somebody else will come up to you.
Why do they have bodyguards in the metaverse?
Building a developer platform focused on non-custodial solutions. On the store side is important. Being completely open development. And
I come over there with you. Just caught it.
On the Twitter side as well. My biggest focus right now is on a decentralized social media protocol. We're calling it Blue Sky. It's super early, but we've learned a lot from what makes Bitcoin and that's important. I've learned a lot in that sense as well. And I think
where's the bodyguard? Where's your bodyguard at?
On that thread and show it with our actions every single day in support of this community that's taught me so much and I think will benefit so many people.
Why are there bodyguards in the metaverse?
Advertisers
There he is! He's chasing you, Retro.
What is he gonna do? Handcuff you?
And then he just jumped off the rope.
Or native currency for being that before Twitter started. Like, it just creates so many different business models that we wouldn't have to be so dependent upon advertising generally. And
your bond with the Gideon coffin gives you strength, powers, control. The only thing you can't do is go back. The tower awaits. It's time to ascend.
Come off and get translated into real services. So the more sort of off-ramps there are to real products and services, even at the institutional level, although I mean there are certainly many small advertisers on Twitter. It seems
no, we can't do a number. We already got them.
Bitcoin.
Oh, we already got them.
No, I mean, we at number 151 right now. I'm gonna do 155.
On Twitter.
Oh, 155, dang.
Supportive of Bitcoin.
So, and also looking at this general commerce through Twitter as well.
That was okay.
Sorry, what? Elon?
I think Jack he's gonna do it. And I think
Can we get a flash announcement today?
Need a special number right
Elon,
now.
how about you? You know, you obviously
So,
you're a big
if you
personality
do
on
grab
Twitter.
these, play should be fake. I got you, bro. If you do grab these, if you do grab these extra numbers, put a 0.4 while you can. We'll get an extra one. With times 2. You get times 2. So you basically
I think we should do things that benefit the people as well and increase the probability.
If you get the extra, if you get the special number though.
You know,
be cautious. Play should be fake. I got you.
Andy Girl just posted that she's gonna have an event tomorrow, and it's by CJ and DJ T-Rax, and the tweet says pop-up launch party going down tomorrow with Candy Girl 420. I'm giving away a music NFT and a special prize. Tag 4 friends, follow Candy Girl and DJ Tracks, post a picture at the party tomorrow and tag us.
Is Candy Girl live right now?
As if your life depended on it.
Is Candy Girl live right now?
Let's check. I don't think so. But she just tweeted that.
So sometimes some people are like,
hey, can you go to OpenSea and send me Candy Girl address real quick?
Government is just a corporation limit. It's the biggest.
I think you can type Candy Girl back there. So I can't use it though.
That's corporations. You should really use government.
Told her what she's been on today. Took her to the crib, showed her the Drake. Oh god. God, I'm just start making TikToks with the Drake though. But not the Drake that fuck out of here.
First piece of advice is, just make sure, and I actually learned this after both Square and Tesla put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Bitcoin is being treated as an intangible asset. So you need to get FASB to reconsider this, because with an intangible asset, if the asset goes up in price, it can't be marked up on the books.
Putting up, stopping the mark of the beast. You heard me, oh god. Walking up just like, oh man. Oh god, don't you hear me? Putting up, stopping the mark. Oh god, though. Putting up, stopping the mark of the beast. The dentist can't fix it if you fuck up your teeth. You heard me? Walking that bitch like I own. Yeah, with my head up looking for the opponent. Real shit though. Oh god. Pulling up, stopping them up with the beast. The dentist can't fix it if you fuck your teeth. Walking that bitch like I own. Yeah, with my head up looking for the opponent. Oh god. I put my love in the Glock. You could meet my mob if your life don't mean a lot. The thing is, I built all this shit, bro. My name not even scrapped on Spaz on here, bro. My rap name is Spaz Gang, bro. So all this shit is the brand, bro. Y'all bag it right. I'm trying to tell you. Y'all bag it right. I ain't even really making music, but when I get right on the music tip and I get my money right, it's gonna be lit, boy. That's all you need on that music tip, some money. I'm just showing you got like a couple dollars, boy. They gonna try to suck your bone, bro. Why this shit so stuck? Can I tell you though? We gonna go up, whole gang though. Everybody, all these, we gonna go up. Oh God, we going up.
Let's go. I'm trying to get on quick swap, but it's
Hey guys, welcome back to DeFi Trader. My name is David, and today I'm going to show you the ultimate guide.
Is quick swap working for you, Scrap?
Oh, I haven't tried it yet, but I'll try it.
Has been doubling in price, just like every late pop I see is doubling in price, and a lot of these projects have a
Really smoking around.
100x. So
I'm really smoking around. I know it's good, but I really smoking around. I'm really smoking around. But I'm really smoking around. I got that 9 or the 4 milli, what you want? Big and low. Basically I say I love that shit. On God, I love that song. She was talking out of tongue, finding out the pack, then I walked in feeling dumb. Big nuts, like I walked in with 2 drums.
You need to make this one a card too, bro.
It's already out. Oh God. I can still make it a card though. This ain't gonna have no utility to it.
No, you don't have to have utility, just a...
Oh yeah. Long live Keith. Riding that car, we ain't had no leaf. That's how it be. I got that Glock getting top in the Jeep.
I don't have a trust wallet. Do you know about trust wallet?
Yeah, quick wallet with trust wallet. I don't know about trust wallet, but you know, I mean, then my account connected. If you go to, I mean, I can see it on my other account. Let's see.
Already there.
If it will tell me connect to.
Once we're at
I mean, it might automatically connect me to OpenSea.
Find Matic mainnet, which I've already done over here. So this is it, Matic mainnet. Add it to MetaMask.
I actually don't know.
So we're going to be doing a transactional.
But yeah, most likely, yeah.
Go ahead and click through all these menus that you see.
But it's a lot more different ones.
Once that is done, we have
swap,
to go
hello swap. What you trying to swap?
the actual wallets. You know,
I got hello swap from bookmark. You got Uniswap. You can use Uniswap. Uniswap one of the best ones though.
Go to this website called Matic.
I just don't got my shit with Uniswap yet.
And there'll be some tabs up.
That's why I ain't promoting that.
So you have to click on this tab.
But yeah, Uniswap good though. Quick swap.
Bring us to the wallet, which is the Matic
I got my
wallet
coin on it.
V2. We want to then move our funds from Ethereum, right? We have to have our funds.
I think too before he sold his Lambo, I got Candy Girl wings for free at a night just for doing that. I think too before he sold it. He sold his Lambo.
So this is really a walkthrough on how to move the funds from Ethereum to Matic. So this is a kind of confusing to start off from, and kind of confusing. So I want to walk you through this so you understand this. So
Hold on, I got a question. No funny shit. I joined Candy Girl stream. Is it a white guy or is it a Chinese guy?
Candy Girl?
Yeah.
I think he's like...
Not a Chinese guy, but he look like a little...
He's Russian?
Oh, cause I think one day he was hosting. I think someday he was hosting somebody or something. I was laughing. I'm like, what the fuck? Like who is this, bro? So it wasn't the guy on the DC on the promotion, on that Super Bowl promotion picture. That was the Candy Girl. He had like a Super Bowl promotion. Anybody that seen that with that Candy Girl on the picture? That's what I thought Candy Girl.
You want to click on Move Funds to Matic Mini. Alright, so my version of this is going to look a little bit different, but this is something that you have to do prior to this actually. So on Ethereum,
Candy Girl, my boy though. I'm just trying to see who the person was I seen on the picture.
I think he was on stream the other day, but he had like that message on the screen, and he said that pretty much he's on vacation right now. But I guess he's coming back tomorrow at that event. So of course I'll probably be working during the event.
Hey Nick, you already got that SG right, Nick?
But if any
you already got Nick right with that SG, right?
So you're just going to have the default set for you and then complete that transfer. Alright, so you'll
No.
start from Ethereum, right?
What was that?
So you already gave Nuke that SG earlier? Okay.
Yeah,
So once you've got your
Nuke's got
Matic
SG.
tokens, over here you'll see the transfer mode plasma bridge.
Nuke set
Transfer
up.
to the Matic network. You gotta click over here and transfer. Complete all of these transactions. You gotta wait about 10 minutes for all of these.
Chauncey, where you been?
This is not instant because you're moving from one network to the other.
I ain't trying to just be friends.
Something that they call settlement.
Big. I'm
So,
trying to be more.
You're gonna have to wait about 10 minutes.
This bitch open, close that door.
Turn your walls. So don't freak out. You don't see
We
that.
be smoking on 44 octane.
Let's say you're not moving from
This shit gas came from the 4th floor.
to the
Top shelf. This shit gas came from the top shelf.
You have a bunch of diets.
Okay, me, I love myself. God.
Make sure it's over here.
She said she love me, I love my well.
But let's say you're starting off
I
with
keep
diet.
a pistol on my belt.
On Ethereum, right?
I'm having a hard time finding Candy Girl's wallet. If someone in the chat can find Candy Girl's wallet and drop it for us, that'd be great. I'm trying to look through Twitter and it's unless I'm just dumb. Let me check their Discord.
So you can't get it from OpenSea by typing your name in?
No, it wasn't coming up.
Yeah.
Maybe I spelled it wrong or did it wrong.
No, it's like, yeah, I know what.
Addresses that were airdropped because I already had Ethereum access. And I was able to do like a couple of transactions literally for free.
Yeah,
you want to send over your
that girl,
or
I
whatever
love
other
that.
tokens you
I
have,
understand.
swap them over to Matic to do that. You have to make sure you've got that airdrop. Not everybody has that. Okay? So, next step is literally great transfer of
Yeah, he got it. That's a bet.
that step is done. Now we can actually start to use our Matic tokens. And one of the first things that I do is swap, right? So, I think one of the best
I get
right now is quick swap.
14 people tapped in.
Go there, you can swap.
14 tapped in, and we gonna roly poly. You heard me.
And it just is super cheap to do. So, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go from, let's say, I swapped over some Ethereum, and I want to buy some Matic, right?
Thank you, Nuke.
So let's swap over one to Matic, and
There
once
you
we
go.
got
Good
that
luck,
put
gang.
in there, we'll go ahead and clear a swap, and there we go, right? So the other exchange that I want to show you.
Damn, I
is
can't even
this.
I can't film no minute.
By dividing the trading to these protocols. So this is a
He got 152.
let's see if this
Somebody
comes
grab
up over here.
152.
So this is
$152 on this.
Finance, and this is a
Oh, no, 155. 155
that counts
Somebody got
pounds or
152 though.
tokens, and you can get into all types of
How many should I send Candy Girl?
Like this is a
Oh, you can send Candy
this
Girl.
is like really degen, but
How
this
you
is
gonna?
a 1
What you
billion
gonna do?
percent compound
You send 5.
APY. This is like
Send her
insane.
5.
So
No, 4.
these are probably
4
the
it is.
best
4 it
ways
is from
to
four,
first
yeah,
get
4.
into yield farming
Melt
on
your
Matic
cheddar
network.
cheese and
And to
drizzle
show you
with
the
creamy
easiest
peppercorn
way to get
ranch.
into it, right?
Only at Firehouse Subs.
Teamlist.org
Put the banner order, pick up or
adding the
deliver.
network to their MetaTattva.
Yeah,
Very easy.
No,
Then
we got it.
this
We got that shit.
bridge
Man.
right here makes it extremely easy to move over your tokens from Ethereum
Let's
onto
go.
Matic as well.
Oh yeah, shit lit.
Not only that, but you can come over to the exchange where you can swap your tokens for whatever other token you want at extremely cheap rates. But we don't stop there, but we can go to the compounding yield farms that are extremely high paying yield. Like this is 1 billion percent APY. This is not sustainable, but we have other ones here that
5 minutes ago, Dino. Never seen that name before. Appreciate you, bro.
check that out. You know, I've been in this for a couple weeks
Drip when I walk. When you follow, use precaution. I should have put that on damn. I should have put that on the description. Oh God. Drip when I walk. If you follow, use precaution. You might slip. You heard me.
Can you change the description or no?
Oh God, drip when I walk. If you follow, use precaution. Nigga, they had the Glock. This shit got an air card.
And I got
I ain't gonna put the
position,
second
and
part.
I want to show you this as well. So, hope you guys liked the video. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care of each other.
I don't
and
think you
until then.
If I had to get it reapproved. What did I say again? Oh yeah.
like me,
It probably won't let me.
you
It probably
probably
won't
spend a
update.
little quicker though.
Cause they
If
got
you're not like me, you kept a comprehensive and detailed spreadsheet of every single transaction you've ever made, so you know exactly how much tax you could pay. Luckily for both of us, if you're not like me, there's crypto tax calculators. It makes tracking and reporting all your
Yeah, they gotta get a pre-approved for that.
incredibly simple.
All you gotta do is log on to the website.
But we ain't got weed
You'll be
again.
asked to connect one of your minutes.
We got some. If we do got weed, we got some.
All you gotta do is hit any exchange you order and click
Let's
connect.
go.
Once it's connected, head to review
And
transactions.
that caught me one.
Some
That caught
items
me
have
one.
changed that have not been approved yet.
Simply remove the ones that shouldn't.
Oh, we can still, yeah, we can still look. We can still look.
Very easy.
Let me hit them up on here real quick.
From there, you can go to get report, give that to your tax agent, or straight to the IRS, and you're ready to go. It's not easy.
Alright, Candy Girl is set up with 4.
Believe it or not, there is much more to cryptocurrency than investing. There are hundreds of decentralized applications built on over a dozen cryptocurrency blockchains. These
Just
dApps
added that
allow you to do
liquidity
things like
and all
lend,
my
borrow,
SG
and
coin I
trade
had.
cryptocurrencies without relying on
Let's
centralized
go.
intermediaries like a bank or cryptocurrency exchange. As it turns out, cutting out these middlemen not only makes transactions more secure and efficient, it also results in more
we sent them that, so we lit.
profits to the end user. On many lending
gonna get that-
apps,
we gonna
you
get
can
a
earn
description
well
change,
over
so we
10% interest per year on your crypto savings. And some beautiful results make it possible to earn over
Yo, y'all wouldn't imagine how many people was on
Accessing
the outside of
new
this,
world
right?
finance requires a
And then
bit
5 minutes from
regular
when I moved, like 2 minutes from when I moved from right here,
where these
bro, nigga got knocked out right here, bro.
One
On
of
my
the
life,
best
bro.
bridges on the market
Oh, God.
is Metamask.
Nigga got knocked out right here. Yo, there's so many police around me right now. I wish y'all could see the other side, bro. Nigga got knocked out right there.
Today, I'm going to walk you through how to